Yeah. Hola. Horchata. It's good stuff. I like it. I think we have that one too, don't we?
Huh?
Don't we have the dulce de leche?
And churro.
I think my next one's a churro.
Right?
All right, Jim. Since I'm hosting, you're gonna have to keep an eye on the YouTube chat. Jump in every now and again.
YouTube chat.
Mhm.
Okay.
The
You
live.
gotta bring up the live stream, mute it, and then talk to people.
I would pause it. That way you're not wasting bandwidth.
Yeah.
Because even when it's paused, you still get the stream of.
Let me see if I can pull it up on my phone.
Yeah, that's how the guys on 3FT do it. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Joe, because I forgot to bring mine up. Let's see here.
Yes, it's a very cuddly puppy.
Oh, for God's sake, two-step. Four 78411. Okay.
Not sure I could find the chat. Oh, here it is. Oh, I see.
It just sits there.
It'll appear if somebody makes a comment.
Like right now.
I don't see any chat. I mean, I don't see any comment.
Me and Bill both commented on there. You should see a
Oh,
chat.
I see. Okay. I got it. I very rarely use the YouTube app on my phone for reasons I've discussed previously. Yes, I see it. Hi and hey, everyone. All right, so I'll see if anything else comes in. Let me lower the AC.
Oh, you just matched the number of shows with Leo.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Congratulations.
kind of crazy. Thank you. We'll wait at least 3 episodes to let Leo know that. That way I've got a buffer.
Yeah, because he might just, start jumping back on
Probably not, but
just to mess with your numbers. Would we argue, though?
not really, no. Because he's
it's
able
Leo?
to take up a lot of space. We'd be back to a 3-hour show, though.
Probably. All right, let me know when you guys are ready.
I think
And we've got plenty of silence already recorded.
Yeah, I've never needed it since we started using Craig. So the problem lately has been the video quality because there's been a lag with.
I've seen
Discord.
that. I've seen that with some, like with Majid, but he is, on
Yeah.
the other side of an ocean. Has anybody else had serious lag problems?
When we did OTC last week, it was all three of us. We were having trouble. Actually, it was like an old cell phone conversation where there was a bit of a delay and whatnot.
Well, I set up a wired connection today instead of just using my wireless 5G.
Yeah.
So took that out of the equation for this time. And I was able to get the laptop back up and running. I don't know necessarily what the problem was, but I assume we're ready to start.
Ready.
Yep.
Okay. Welcome to mintCast, the podcast by the Linux Mint community for all users of Linux. This is episode 480, recorded on Sunday, March 1st, 2026. Still working way too hard. I'm Joe.
Sick, but I'm here. I'm Bill.
Glad I don't live in California. I'm Jim.
First up in the news, California is doing it again. Then in our wanderings, Bill does it while sick, Joe does a lot, and Jim plays with Ghost. And finally, the feedback and a couple of suggestions. Please remember, if you want to follow along with our discussions, the full show notes for this episode are linked in the show's description at mintcast.org/show notes. Link in the show notes. First up in the news, California introduces age verification law for all operating systems. Basically, the title says it all, I assume. I don't see how that's enforceable with something like Linux. I don't really... You might be able to enforce it with Microsoft and Apple, but really I don't see how it's enforceable at all with Linux.
Well, unless they enforce it like on the platform level, like because it looks like they're talking about things like Steam and whatnot. If they're enforcing, if they're just enforcing the platforms to, and by platform I mean Steam, Discord, what have you, then it won't matter what operating system you're on. They're really plugging away hard at this.
California introduces age verification law for all operating systems, including Linux and SteamOS. User age verified during OS account setup. So they are trying to enforce it for operating systems.
That's nonsense. That's
this
going
was
to be a
written
non-issue.
obviously by people that do not understand
Yeah.
operating systems or open source whatsoever.
Yeah, because that'll be so easy to go around.
And I know Jim has an opinion on this.
I bet.
Yeah, it seems impossible to enforce, and it's just yet another encroachment by, big data, big government, along with a lot of other initiatives and things that are taking place that are frightening for our future.
Basically, every operating system will have to have a little disclaimer on their page saying, if you live in California, don't download this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Well, I mean, maybe it'll open up like a whole new pipeline of OSs that are only available in California. So they're California
I doubt
OS.
it, but-
I just don't see how this is going to go anywhere. I think it's a lot of loud talk, really, because there is some demand to do something, and I think the non-technical community is really at a loss as to how to deal with some of the negative things that go on online. And as usual, we'll skip right over parents. Keep an eye on what your kids are doing. Talk to your kids.
Look, your kids can get around you, obviously, even if you are on top of them when it comes to things like tech. But still, I mean, talk to them.
And if my kids figured out a way to circumvent all this crap, then I feel like I won. I won. If they're smart enough to pull that off, then what else am I supposed to passed
I
down
remember
to.
having a conversation with a woman where I was telling her how I had blocked a whole bunch of things from the router level to prevent my children from going to specific websites. And she said, well, what are you teaching your kid there? And my answer was security. I mean, if they get around it, then yeah, I'm all for it.
Her implication being that now you've removed the opportunity to like impart wisdom as to why you shouldn't partake in these things. You're just shielding them from it. And I can kind of see a little bit of that point, but at the same time, you know, does that mean we take our kids over to the trailer park where all the chomos live just to expose them to the...
Let them loose and
Yeah.
tell them to defend themselves?
Yeah, you know, it's... you know, blocking these things on the network level is an option. I think, you know, as you would be aware.
Well,
just-
see, I wasn't even like blocking adult sites or anything. My kid had a problem with basically going to fan fiction sites when she was supposed to be doing her homework. And so I set it up so that I didn't know the specific sites, but every time she went to a site, I was able to get that information and then put that into the router and directly block that individual site.
Yeah.
So,
And that's actually pretty easy to do with something like Pi-hole or I know there's other solutions
router.
out there. Yeah, even on the router itself.
Online.
But you know, this California thing, good luck is all I got to say. This, like many things of its kind, is going to disappear the minute the current administration is done.
well, I took a look at the next article real quick, and I will let Jim explain this one, but this is going to be the example. And it's the exact same thing that happens to porn sites that get blocked from specific states. Please go ahead with this one, Jim.
Yeah, this was clearly a very reactionary move by the creator of a operating system called Midnight BSD. For those who are not familiar, it's a rather obscure desktop, home user oriented variant of FreeBSD. I've never tried it, but clearly this guy just heard, it's a one-man show, essentially, this operating system, right? And he heard the news and he just said, you know what, I'm not dealing with this. He simply changed the terms of his license immediately and excluded Californians. That's it. Problem solved, at least in his mind, So
did he-
how many people that will affect, who knows? Probably not many.
Not many with BSD. Did he end up blocking all California IP addresses, or did he just put a notice up on his site saying no Californians allowed?
According to this, it looks like a post from social media. It simply says, until we have a better plan, we modified our license to exclude residents of California from using Midnight BSD for desktop use, effectively January 1st, 2027. So it looks pretty much just like that's it. He just banned you from the license. I don't
It's
think
just
they can
in his
prevent you from
license.
downloading it or trying
Yeah.
it.
And
Well-
they're all too aware of that.
No, a lot of... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that the irony is not lost on me that BSD literally stands for Berkeley. The B in BSD stands for Berkeley.
Software distribution.
Yeah, software. But yeah, no, I think people that want to use it will still have access to it, because how you gonna do that? And they're just gonna ignore that license, that particular part of the license, because I don't see people using any sort of BSD complaining about parental whatnot in the operating system.
It'll get interesting when the bigger, Linux distributions that have, many more thousands or hundreds of thousands or of users are going to have to possibly contend with this, assuming it doesn't just
I don't think they will
go
have
away.
to. I don't think they will have to. Obviously, it's not going to go away quickly. I mean, it's not going to turn on a dime any more than it did when they're putting it into place, which is why it's not an issue until 2027. But the whole thing is much like I was saying before, porn sites that actively block the IP addresses in specific states that have laws against them. It's not going to affect their actual usage because people are just going to use a VPN. And anybody that is, savvy enough to install BSD or Linux for that matter, Ubuntu, whatever, are going to be savvy enough to,
Right.
set up a VPN and use it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
At least long enough to download a distro that they want to use. And there's no way that this is enforceable in the least. What are they going to do? Sue Ubuntu? I guess they could. The only people that might comply is what? Red Hat? Maybe.
Yeah, and
some of the bigger distros might have to put some kind of, when you check off all those things, like whether you want to have, certain, external codecs and things like that. I remember even Mint had that. There'll probably just be a little checkbox that says, identify what age group you're in. Because you don't have to upload your ID or anything. It's just, are you between, 0 and 13? Are you between 13 and 16? Or are you 16 and 18 or 18 plus? It just might be some stupid little checkbox, and then that's it. That's all you have to do.
Until they start trying to do the same thing that they tried to do to Discord, and you have to go through some agency that does the verification for them.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there's
It's
always a
mess.
step further that they can go. Okay. I think we beat that to death anyway.
yeah.
Next up, bi-weekly wanderings. Bill?
Yeah, I guess I go first. Well, I'm pretty well medicated right now, but I've been fighting the flu on and off for several weeks now, and these last few days have really kicked my hind end. But I'm here and I'm muscling through, so we'll get through it. Okay, so what have I done tech-wise? I bought a third Chewy laptop. For those that are not aware, Chewy is what is it? It's a Chinese company.
cheapo.
Yeah, they're very inexpensive, but it's not because the devices are made cheaply or anything like that. It's just they're using lower powered CPUs and whatnot to
Lower spec.
And which, depending on what your needs are, it's fine. This third one I bought is actually one of those, it's a 13.5 inch it's called the FreeBook 13.5 inch. It's got the N100 in it, which is basically, it's a quad core, but it's nearly it runs steady like
The
one.
N100, the N100 is actually efficiency cores.
Yeah, right.
So some of your higher end processors have regular cores and efficiency cores. The N100, the N150, and things like that are just the efficiency cores, and they
Correct.
work at a very low power, but they still get the job done.
Yeah, and this one is actually better because I had the 14-inch Hero book is what I was using on the road, and I edited an episode of mintCast on that machine, and it was painful. Every little thing took forever to do on Audacity, so I went with this FreeBook. Now, this FreeBook's got the same N100 processor as my big 15-inch Gemmy book, which I know that does a fairly good job with Audacity and stuff like that. And it's got there's a lot more hardware acceleration on that Silicon too, and it's got twice the RAM in it. So I'm kind of I'm looking forward to some better performance with that. It has to be said too. I didn't know. I never thought that I would get along with a small laptop like that. I couldn't imagine why anybody would use anything smaller than a 15-inch. But now that I've got one, it's actually kind of nice to be on the road, because in the back of my truck I've got a little work area, and I've got so much. It makes a heck of a difference. This thing's also got like a 3:2 aspect ratio, which seems to be more popular these days. Kind of not really going back to the 4:3 ratio, but it seems to be popular to kind of shrink the sides in a little bit. But it works because it's also it's a 2K monitor. That's the other thing that I thought was kind of, I don't know that I think it's strange, but it really makes for a crisp, clean image on the screen. And it's running Arch with GNOME on it, and I've got it set to 133% fractional scaling, and that looks pretty natural. But we'll see how that goes. That should give me a little bit better performance if I've got to do any editing, which this show I'll probably have to take on the road with me to get done, because I don't think I'm going to sit down here after we get done today. Okay, so I'm in the process of switching 2 of the servers running motherboards from Lenovo ThinkCenter's M93P. I'm switching those over to a Supermicro X10 SLL-F motherboard. I've got 3 of these motherboards that I got from eBay, and they were fairly cheap. They're from the same 4th gen as the 4th gen in terms of Intel. They're from that same generation as the M93Ps, but I have some. I've got drawers full of CPUs, and I had some fairly beefy Xeon processors to put in it. And so I put a couple of the E3 1270, which is that's an 8-core Xeon with 32 gigs of RAM, and it's ECC RAM. That was the main reason I wanted to make this transition, because I wanted to make better use of the error correcting code RAM for the servers, because I'm also using ZFS on these things, and they rely quite a bit on the RAM when they're doing their writes and stuff like that. And a lot of container workloads going on there too. So I don't know what the practical advantage is going to be, but you know how I am. I like to tinker with these things, so we'll see how it goes. I'm not sure how I feel about it, and I'm quite sure people will have an opinion, but I've been replacing switches in my house for the Amazon Basics smart switches. These things work with Alexa, and I've avoided a solution like this for a while, because I've never really took the time to understand smart home technology and how it all kind of comes together, because my understanding of it all was that you had this concept of a hub, and then everything kind of connects to or communicates with the hub, and the hub is kind of the brain that does the work. Well, it's really not how it works. At least it's not how it works with the Amazon switches. They basically just connect to your router. You get the Alexa app on one device, like my phone. You set up the first switch, and you give it the Wi-Fi password, and then you set it up on the network, and it basically communicates directly. And then the cool thing is, after you've done all that work to get that first one set up, when you add more switches, they kind of auto-discover, and then they seem to get all the information they need from what was already set up from the first switch. And then you can, I guess there's a lot of things you can do. I've not even scratched the surface on this. But the main thing I wanted to do was set routines, what they call routines, where it turns them on at sundown and turns them off at sunrise. That sounds simple enough. The way I was achieving this in the past was I was buying these little Honeywell switches that had they had their own brains in them. They had a little clock on it. They didn't connect to anything. They weren't dumb switches, but they weren't smart switches either. They just kind of had their own system where you could set a timer on it to turn on and off. The problem with those was it had no concept of daylight savings time, and as the year progresses and then goes back, the time of day which you need those lights to come on and off has to be changed. With this solution, I can just tell it sunrise and sunset, and then I just never have to worry about it again. It just gets that information from the network. Yeah, it's Alexa and it's at Amazon, but my God, my Amazon, for all the creepy stuff Amazon knows about me, knowing that I like to turn my outside lights on at sundown and back off at sunrise is probably the least intrusive thing when you consider that Amazon knows your wife's menstrual cycles and things like that, So come on. Now, some people might say, well, why don't you just get off your lazy butt and go flip the switch? Sure, but some of these lights are in places where, like the one is on a French doors that lead directly out of my house to the backyard, and somebody would have to physically come downstairs. And when I'm on the road, I like to know that things back home.
Technology is supposed to make your life easier.
Yeah, it is, and it's supposed to. It gives me this the sort of sense of security, knowing that these lights are going to come on, whether somebody in the house forgets to or not. So, like I said, and these things are cheap. I mean, these switches are like $13 or something like that, and they just work. I mean, whereas before, two of the lights would come on at the same time, roughly the same time, and then an hour later or something like that, the third light would come on. And with this, everything just comes on by itself, and there's no concept of a hub, which is the other thing that I was kind of concerned about. Is I really didn't want it to be right now. I didn't want to have to manage something,
Your phone or your thing that has Alexa installed on it, that's really your hub.
Well, I mean, but it doesn't have to be here, though. It's
right.
It can be
Joe,
anywhere.
Are you possibly on the wrong microphone?
Something happened, Joe. I don't know. Nope.
Yeah.
You're
not on that mic.
It switched
I
somehow.
I'm not on that mic. I don't know how it would have switched. Give me a second. Input. Oh, it switched to this mic. Awesome. Because it no longer sees my other mic.
Wow.
You gotta love
That
stuff
happens
happening in the middle of the show.
Yeah. On the rare occasion when that happens for me before the show, I just physically unplug the USB connection where it connects to the hub that goes into my laptop.
Well, when it comes to microphones, I make sure to plug directly into the computer.
Yeah.
So this should not be happening.
Hub's got a way of
Either
putting
way,
things to sleep and to save power or whatever. I've got a card in this machine that actually does that. It even if the device is being used, it puts it to sleep for some reason. So I have to make sure.
Better?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I don't know. It might happen again. It seems like a bad connection. I might have to swap out some cables or get a new microphone. Who knows?
Isn't that your second one?
No, this is my first Q2U.
Oh, okay.
It's the one you got me.
Somebody had a Q2U go out on them, and I don't remember who it was.
Wasn't me.
So anyway, yeah, we're gonna see how that goes. I'm getting kind of mad keen about it now. I might get one of those Alexa thermostats to replace the one I've got because I'm not crazy about my. I want to see if there's anything I can do to slow down my electric bill or my gas bill a little bit.
Yeah, the only thing I would want to say there is I do have a lot of smart switches and everything, but I don't like the Amazon basic smart switches. I like the ones that, because most other brands, whatever application that they say that they use, will connect to the Toya app. And the Toya app connects directly to Home Assistant. And so I can use all the things that connect to that with Home Assistant. So I'm not stuck to the Amazon.
And what's the difference in price with those switches?
Nothing. Usually the other ones are cheaper because, like I said, most brands, it doesn't really matter what brand they are, but usually they will connect to Toya. Except for the Amazon basic ones. I haven't found a way to get those to connect to Toya.
Well, they're probably using. I mean, they're just Wi-Fi, aren't they? And a lot of these things that are used that will work with Home Assistant. They're running on Zigbee or Z-Wave and all that kind of stuff.
And Zigbee and Z-Wave are a 2.4, or they're a Bluetooth actually, usually.
Right.
But then you need like a $20 or $30 adapter to get them to hook to a computer and then run them through Home Assistant.
Yeah, and see, I was really not. I wasn't feeling none of that. I got to tell you, I should as much of this self-hosting as I'm into. You would think that would be the route I would take, but I need it to just work without me having to shell into it from the road because my lights won't come on.
And let me tell you, Home Assistant is a lot of setup and it's a lot of work.
I've heard. But yeah, that's about all I've got right now. How about you, Joe?
Well, I was on vacation for a chunk of this, so and I'm going to go over things probably a couple of times as things changed over the last like 4 weeks since we had one of these. But it was kind of odd. But the mini rack hasn't really had a lot of problems so far, and nothing really to fix. I did get those M.2 AE adapters to 2.5G to replace the ones that weren't actually 2.5G, and that led to a couple of other projects. I connected the 4 terabyte hard drive next to the 8 terabyte hard drives on the mini rack. The 4 terabyte hard drive was previously in the garage PC, and I passed it through to OMV, but I did leave all the data on it. I think I might eventually switch things around and move all of my audiobooks and image pics onto it so that it's all separated from the TV shows and the movies. I also did a lot of data balancing and got all of the movies except for the kids' movies onto the newly added 8 terabyte drive. And I'm thinking of getting rid of the kids section entirely and just merging it all together since my kids are a bit older now. And some of the organization there just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I also picked up a low-cost 2.5G PCIe card for the garage PC since the USB one wasn't really being seen as 2.5G by the Switch. But at the same time, I'm going to be putting that in. I'm also going to install the old 8 terabyte drive that was having trouble being seen since it will not be on the same controller. And I was also able to find an old DVR at a resale shop that I've had my eye out for. I've been keeping my eye out for DVRs for a while since most of them have a 1 terabyte hard drive inside. This one did too. So I was able to pick up a 1 terabyte hard drive for like $5. I don't know how many hours or anything that it has on it at this point. Actually, I did find out. I did, the smart data on it after I hooked it up, and it had about 4 years of runtime on it. But with it being a DVR, it was probably more read than it was write, and it's been working great. Now, from that DVR, I wasn't able to get a lot other than the hard drive, but I was able to get a small 4-pin fan. I think like a 40 millimeter, so it's a pretty small fan, but and a SATA extender and a whole lot of screws that I'm going to end up using later in projects. Now, the garage PC had been making a bit of noise because it was getting warm. I did install P-Sensor, and I did see the temps just shooting up randomly. It has not been that hot in my garage yet, so while I have it down, I was going to check the thermal paste on it. Not going to use anything special, but I think I have some thermal grizzly floating around somewhere. Still need to get another motherboard for the old garage PC and see if that fixes the issues, and we will get to that in a minute because I did find some things out. But I was thinking about different motherboards that I could get, and I prefer the micro ATX or the mini ITX, but I could have used a different case and gone full size. Only problem with the ITX is that it will likely only have one PCI slot, and that will have to have a graphics card in it. But I have seen some interesting 3D prints for micro IT or mini ITX and 10-inch racks, so I could potentially replace one of the computers there and put it in there. It's almost time to start making another rack. Actually, I might have to do that anyway, just a bit smaller, maybe something for the living room, maybe do a setup with an old network switch and the Lenovo mini PC that's there, along with a modified version of the 2.5-inch drive bay that I made before and didn't end up using because the controllers died. These being laptop drives, they'll be a lot easier to power, and I'll just need to find a way to hook them up to data. I should have some 12-volt power supplies, and I can order the adapters to convert them to SATA. I'll also have to see how Lenovo has its M.2 set up, which I think is on the bottom. I may have to do something crazy and hook them all to a USB hub for data. The pigtail adapters are about $10 each and would require 2 of those, and the USB to SATA adapters are also about $10 each, but I would require 4 of those for a 4-drive setup, so already looking at $60 since I already have the 12-volt power supplies. Yeah, it's probably going to be a little while before I start on that project, though. Well, I am happy to say that the 8 terabyte drive that I thought was bad that I was talking about earlier actually isn't. I was able to find, I already talked about the DDR, pulled that 1 terabyte hard drive. I figured it was worth a chance. Sure, and I got it all hooked up. Both of those drives seem to be working real well. Now, I should have done the thermal paste at the same time when I was doing that, tested things with the CPU fan. I think I'm going to have to upgrade the CPU fan in that Acer PC. I also don't like the motherboard in there, so I might redo the whole thing. Just save the CPU, which is an i5 10th gen, which is pretty darn good. But I did have the NIC hooked up. Everything was working. There was an error on the 8 terabyte drive, but I was able to clear that up with, fixed disk. And the NIC is working the way that it should. Now, on the mini rack, I did shut down the LXC for REDAR. I thought it was useful for tracking what books I did and did not have, and would track a new book from the authors that I enjoy. But it is out of support, and when it does work, it was causing more problems than it was helping. So it is shut down for now. I did need to spend some time updating my Home Assistant to get everything working the way that it should, got rid of some things, added some things back, reconnected some things using Toya, etc., etc. During my time off, I also wrote an updated version of my travel routing article. I seem to need to redo it every couple of years. I think at this point I'm almost doing it yearly, but I like putting it all together. Now I just need to find a good place to post it, and I think I will be posting that at Linux Lugcast's website. And yes, I am aware that the articles are not that different, but it's the small updates that are important. So the 2.5G adapters, like I said, they did arrive. I did set them up. And while I did that on the 2 mini PCs, I also replaced the loud fan in the one device. I had to reorder it because the first ones were not the correct ones. For some reason, the one machine with the SATA controller that controls the 6 SATA drives for my DAS decided to stop working, but I was able to get it seen again and going after some reseating and some powering on and off. Hopefully that is not a sign of things to come. The other machine worked fine, but for some reason virtualization decided to turn itself off, so I had to go into the BIOS and fix it. No, I don't know why. I mean, it was working perfectly fine before I replaced the fan, and then after I replaced the fan, it just said, yeah, what's a virtual machine? But everything is up and running, and for the internal network, the speeds for file moves are somewhat faster. I'm sure that I could get it even higher if I were to implement a RAID system or switch to all SSDs, but this is a good enough upgrade for now. Now, I pulled out all of my portable routers and the repurposed mesh routers and gave them a going over to make sure that they all work. All except one of them that I need to go back to. I have some that are many years old and gosh darn it. And one that only supports like a 10100 connection instead of a 1000 connection. And it is not set up for OpenWRT. I kind of figured that it would not be all that useful. So I set it aside. I was planning on throwing it away. I have one that is very tiny and does have a 10100, 1000 and a USB port and dual NICs. It's older, it has no 5G band, but I think that with the dual NICs, it is still very useful on the go. Plus, I was able to get Easy Tether on it and connect it to my phone. The next thing to do with it is to set it up in my car and give myself a hotspot on the go. I'll set up my Android Auto head unit to connect to it, and I will be able to charge my phone at the same time by hooking up one cable. The mesh routers are currently all set up as Wi-Fi bridges, except for one that is set up as a normal router. And then my primary TP-Link device, it's actually not a TP-Link, it's a GLI-Net. I don't know why I put that there. Is also set to bridge for now, but I tend to reset that one often. Also made sure that all the devices that are able to access WireGuard with a couple of clicks. If I want them to be attached to my home network from a remote location. Now, since I had the correct NICs in the rack now, I also decided to set up something else that had come into my head. Some background, I have an instance of OpenWRT running in an LXC that has a VPN connected to PIA. I can set my LXC or VM to use that VPN with a bit of tinkering in the settings. My original thought was to share the old 1G Ethernet port with the OpenWRT LXC and just have it as an output for the VPN, so anything that connects to it also is going over the VPN. Having done some research, it is not a simple or straightforward thing to do. I am sure there's another way to do it within Proxmox itself, and probably easy enough that no one thinks to write it down, but I can't seem to get it to work. In the end, I mostly got tired of the research when I remembered that it is super easy to do in Linux Mint, and that I have a VM that uses that VPN. So I cheated, and did it the easy way by passing the entire NIC to the VM, and then sharing it to other computers in the settings. I have the old 8 port that I previously had on the rack that I can use, and I also have a nice 5 port if I want to use a smaller one. But for now, I think I'm going to use that old 10100 portable router, which is a 5 volt and pretty darn small, and hook that to it. This will provide a Wi-Fi connection to an external VPN if that is needed or wanted. Now, I know that's a bit of a niche thing, but if I suddenly feel the need to have my phone on a VPN to PIA, all I have to do is a couple of clicks and switch to that Wi-Fi, and I'm on it. Or if someone else in my house wants to use a VPN and doesn't want to set it all up, they can do the exact same thing. Now, I have printed a 10-port panel for Keystone pass-through couplers for Ethernet ports, which I thought I had room for on the back of my mini rack, but now I'm thinking that I don't. So I may need to order some PETG again for my printer and get a 2U or 3U extension for the top of the mini rack, which should let me put on the switch and the panel on the rear of the device. And maybe at the front, I'll put a small screen. One of my friends from Linux Lugcast is practicing making Ethernet cables, so agreed to send me 10 1-foot long Cat6 cables. This will allow me to extend the setup that I currently have and make it so that the cables are going to other devices in the room can be disconnected much more easily, making it much less difficult to pick the thing up and move it for maintenance instead of having to reach all the way into the guts of the thing to disconnect the inbound cable and the one to the garage PC and my workstation for work. So there's actually the garage PC, the inbound connection, my workstation for work, those 3 cables, I have to reach inside the guts of this mini rack and disconnect them before I can move the mini rack to work on the mini rack. I also reprinted the top shelf that I have for the rack, as the old one just couldn't handle the weight of the, the 3 external drives and the external monitor, the little mini screen that I had set there. I printed the new one much thicker, as well as in one piece instead of the 2 pieces that the other one was, because it was printed on my old printer, but kept the holes that I used for mounting the monitor, so that should work out pretty well. It's actually a little bit narrower, so that should leave enough room in the back if I don't want to go upwards in order to be able to hook up the pass-through ports. Did I mention that I was on vacation for a week of this and had plenty of time to experiment with whatever came into my head? Plus, while I was on vacation, I was also studying for the CompTIA Linux Plus through YouTube videos while doing most of this, as well as going to the gym and visiting with friends and helping out the wife that was not feeling well, cleaning my house, finishing up cutting the firewood in the backyard, designing a new brick fire pit for the backyard in my head because my brain wasn't occupied enough, obviously, designing and printing that top shelf for the rack, rewriting that article, and that was pretty much by Tuesday of that week. I did slow down for the rest of the week, though, but the Acer PC kept having problems with overheating, and I had been pricing motherboards for the other one, but before I, dropped the hammer on getting a new one, I decided to test it one more time to see if I could find what was wrong. So I started testing from the top, power supply, and anything that was connected. I removed the USB headers for the front panel and then the front panel connections to take the whole board out so I could test outside the case. And then I decided to test the power supply one more time. But since I didn't have the front I/O connected, I jumped the pins and the thing started right up. I thought that was a little interesting, but to test it, I ended up swapping over the reset switch to the power connectors because that should have worked just the same, and it still didn't work. I then took apart the front panel itself and tested with, my multimeter, and the momentary switches on there were not working at all. Thankfully, I had some replacements that were the correct size, and I had a soldering iron, and it didn't take very long for me to put in new ones and for it to start working just fine. I then moved the drives back to it, and I was missing one of the caddies, so I did have to 3D print one. I moved over the 2.5G NIC, and I powered it up for testing. There was some issues with the RAM again, but I don't know if that's the motherboard or the RAM. Or the RAM that I have. I was also noticing some issues in the other board with certain pairs of RAM. But I found the best configuration, and I put in that graphics card that Bill sent me, and it's in its new home, and it's set up, and it's ready to go. I did have to dig out some adapters for a DisplayPort to HDMI, but it's up and running, and it's really better than ever. I have no idea what could have caused those momentary switches to go out, though. And I did, while I have it apart, take the cooler off of that one, and the thermal paste was completely dry. And I replaced that, and yeah, it's going great. And then the Acer PC, I did take it apart as well, and I also checked the thermal paste on that one. What was weird is that the thermal paste was really fine. It was perfect. So I have no idea why it's overheating, other than it probably needs a bigger cooler. And if I set it up in the living room, I'm probably going to grab another PCIe card with 2.5G, except it'll be multi-port, and I'll probably just put OpenWRT or pfSense on it and get a quality external Wi-Fi connection for it and set things up with that, because my router is starting to have some issues in the 2.4 gigahertz range. It's just randomly dropping, and then I have to restart the thing for the 2.4 to come back. But I have had the thing for nearly a decade, so I can't complain too much. Now, I also had some useful 3D prints start to fall apart just because age. Now, the mic mount that I use for this show actually fell apart, and then the headset hanger that I use for when I'm not on the show so I can put my headphones there on the back of my table, and then also the foot pedal that I use on my USB switcher that I use all of the time for work. All of them, a couple of years old, and they worked great that whole time, so I didn't do anything to update those prints. I just reprinted them and then put them back into production. Now, I'm not wearing them right now, but I have also started using contact lenses along with my glasses. So I have 3D printed glasses cases, but I am going to redesign things so that I can carry around the glasses and the case for the contact lenses in the same case, along with some eye drops, so that I have everything all together at the same time in as small a package as possible. But one thing I need to do is get some TPU for the inside of the 3D printed cases so that I'm not scratching up my glasses. But yeah, that's what I've been up to over the last couple of weeks. I know, it's a lot, and it's all over the place. I apologize for that. Jim?
Well, you've been productive, that's for sure.
Yeah, that was a lot. I will throw in this comment that as someone who's been wearing contact lenses for decades, the best ones are the ones daily disposable. Throw them in the garbage at the end of every day before you go to bed. Put in a fresh new pair the next day. I tell that to anyone when the subject comes up. So do with that information what you will, but I like the AccuView daily disposable.
I think you're probably due for a new router too, or access point, if you're dropping 2.4 that often. And you said you've had it for 10 years. They've made some pretty steep. It's probably a Wi-Fi 4 if it's that old, isn't it?
No, this actually has Wi-Fi 6 built in.
Does it really?
Yeah. It's older, but it also it's got a 2.5G port that can either be used for the LAN or the WAN.
Right.
And I'm using it currently for the LAN because my WAN is nowhere near 2.5G. So,
right on.
yeah. So when I got it, it was a pretty top-end device.
That's the thing about those top-end devices. You just you think they ought to last forever because of the money you spend on that thing.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I have zero complaints about how long it's lasted or the horrible things that I have put it through. I mean,
one thing that's helped with mine, both my router, because I've separated the router from the access point, but one function they both have is an automatic. You can schedule reboots, so I schedule mine to both devices reboot at 3 a.m. on Saturday morning.
that might fix most of my problems.
Yeah, it might be on there. I know that the router's a TP-Link Omada, and the access point's a TP-Link I can't remember the model, but it's not the top of the line one by any means. But yeah, I've noticed they get gummed up if you don't reboot them. Same, the same thing applies with any other device, I suppose.
Yeah, I've been having to reboot my 3D printer before I start a print. I didn't used to have to, but now I don't know, bit rot, whatever. I have to every couple of days make sure I restart it. Otherwise, it just won't level the bed correctly.
Yeah, it seems to be something. That's been an issue since we started playing with computers, and it feels like it's always going to be a thing. You just got to reboot every now and then.
Ubiquitous power it off, power it on, turn it off, turn it back on.
Yep. All right, Jim, what do you got?
I should mention that our co-host Majid confirmed that it was his Q2U microphone that went out in the YouTube chat from the earlier comment.
Yeah.
So I also am using the same microphone, as you could see, but mine's relatively new and is working great, as far as I could tell. And also, I am going to make an observation that just occurred to me, that you guys love to talk about hardware. It's all drives and laptops and switches and racks and cables and thermal paste, and my wavelength, what I contribute is almost all software. So it's something it just occurred to me, not just today, but in general, for what that's worth.
Well, that's a good thing.
I tend to go through cycles. I've been on a long hardware cycle right now, but believe me, I did go through a long cycle of setting up the software for gaming when Proton first came out. So yeah, there was a good year or two there where that was basically all I talked about.
And when it comes to software, I've got the same things that I've been using for years. And, I could go on about things on Arch and whatnot, but nobody wants to hear that crap. So, but it's good, that you've got
smack,
this.
but of course we want to hear about that crap.
Well, I don't know. I always worry that it comes across elitist and whatnot.
People used to get annoyed with me because I would talk about all the stuff that you do on the command line, and I would talk about it on the show, the command line instructions, and obviously an audio format isn't the greatest for that.
Right. Well, for software, I have been playing around my continuing adventures on a separate PC, not the one I'm communicating with you right now. I set up GhostBSD. I talked about this before. This is my version of distro hopping, and it's been fun. 90% of everything worked straight out of the box. The 10%, those are the things that I had to work on, and I've been just putting a little bit of time every week, just effectively trying to recreate the Linux Mint, everything just works experience. So yeah, the first thing I had to do was get Wine working. For some reason last year when I played with it, I couldn't get it working right, but then it updated to Wine 10 a while ago, and I got my ancient Windows board game playing aid made for play by email. It's an old program, right? All the way from 1994. So you can imagine it's a 32-bit ancient program. Yet, thanks to the magic of Windows continuing to support their own, and Wine being as good as it is, I got it working. All I had to do was install Wine 10, Wine Proton, and Wine Mono through the software station, which is GhostBSD's package manager. And once I did that and then applied the same principles I did on Linux Mint, I got it to work. The key trick to get it to actual launch was use the first time you try to, and this is a comment obviously for broader than just this one program. If you're having trouble with getting a Windows exe to work in any kind of Unix based Unix like distro, try to run it once through the terminal, instead of double clicking it, in the file manager, because that for me prompted the download of the 32-bit binaries and dependencies, and that made everything just work. So that's a little tip if you guys are ever using a Windows exe elsewhere. And then I was pleased to see that Wine 11, which recently updated, and I discussed this on a previous show on Linux Mint, it also was updated on GhostBSD. So they're very close behind Linux, and yeah, everything just worked there. So then I have another board game playing aid called Vassal, which lets you play live and asynchronously. And they generously make their own version for quote unquote other, meaning not Windows, not Mac, not Linux. And it works via Java, so it's truly cross-platform on everything except for iOS. And that works straight out of the box. All you have to do is place it somewhere, wherever you want, on your hard drive, and it works. All you have to do is have JDK, I think that stands for Java Development Kit, and that installs normally with LibreOffice, which I would assume almost all of us have on every Linux distro or on BSD. So it works great. I was able to add, because I'm using Cinnamon, just like I am on Linux Mint, I'm trying to recreate that experience because I'm very particular about my user interface. All I had to do was add those items manually. So to the menu, and the SuperKey launcher launches them, even though one of them is a Wine program and one of them is a cross-platform Java-based program. They're integrated right into the game submenu, and everything works just like you would expect, just like it does on Linux Mint. I tend to put a lot of my software on Linux Mint in the opt directory, right off the root /opt, rather than the area with my documents and all that kind of stuff. I just don't like putting stuff along with my regular documents. So on GhostBSD /opt does not exist. However, I was able to create a directory in user local opt, and that's where I am putting all those kind of programs that are either Windows programs that work with Wine or some kind of cross-platform program, not from the software package manager, and effectively I'm recreating.
Does it not let you make a /opt directory in the root? I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, the FreeBSD and GhostBSD are very similarly laid out to Linux, but there are a few differences. I think it would let you create an opt right in the root, but because I'm very picky about how things are organized, I actually Googled this and saw what other people recommended or did for their packages outside of the software station, and somebody else suggested that that's what they did. They use user local opt rather than root opt, and so I just followed suit. So just seemed logical to me. But yeah, I have, even on Linux Mint, I have a not insignificant number of programs in /opt, things that are either cross-platform, binaries, Windows programs, things that are simply not from the package manager, and that are, and I don't use Flatpaks or snaps. I do have app images inside opt as well. So I just put a directory, name it with the name of the program, and I have everything there, So you got to have elevated privileges to, drag stuff there after you download it. But to me, that just seems like a logical place to put that stuff, because one of my big quirks with Linux, and likewise with GhostBSD, is I don't believe, those 8 programs those 8 directories that they give you, my documents, desktop, my videos, photos, download, those. I don't believe in putting stuff there. When I use unhide, I feel like I just want to keep it out of sight and out of mind. All those hidden directories inside of the home folder just irk me. That's one thing Windows gets right. There's none of that stuff. Is in
I don't
the
like
home
the
folder.
naming convention because I think of I'm thinking of things and not like documents, videos, music, that kind of thing. I'm thinking of like production, audio, maybe video, if it's something I'm just going to watch on that machine, which is very rare. But these old holdovers that just have been the same thing all these years, and it's just not occurred to anybody to change. It doesn't really work for me. There's a way to get into your XDG desktop settings and change all of that. And like I was going to say, the only reason you said you like to put a lot of stuff in the op directory. In the past, I've opted to put stuff in the home directory in the local folder or something like it. Mostly because in a lot of cases, if it's something that only I'm using, I like to encrypt the home directory, and I don't want browser related stuff to be accessible if somebody broke in my basement and stole all this stuff, or whatnot. I don't know.
Well, what Jim has said here has led me to the obvious conclusion that he doesn't share his computer with anyone else.
Yeah, well, I don't either.
Because yes, programs go into opt, configs go into home.
Yeah, but in Windows, configs don't go into home, and I don't like the idea that configs go into home. That's one of my sort of side arguments about if you ask me my number one quirk that I dislike about Linux is that configs go in home. I
have to agree with you. I have to agree with you because sometimes you want to put. It's why I don't do it. In the old days, I would like the operating system would get installed on a really fast drive, like an NVMe or something like that, and then you would just write your home directory to a much larger, maybe slower hard drive. The problem you run into when you do that is usually the larger, slower drive. Well, the larger drive is going to be something slower, like a spinning Rust or what have you, and you're going to slow down your applications doing that because they're going to the home directory to source all of their configs. And that is a pretty good argument for not doing that. But yeah, you're right. I don't know of anybody that is doing it any other way, honestly, other than Windows.
Yeah, when I went to GhostBSD, I was hoping maybe it was different, but it's not. It's very, very similar to Linux with a few exceptions. So maybe some even more obscure operating systems like Elomos or something might do it that way. I don't know, but yeah,
you could probably
FreeBSD and
you could probably symlink your config directory off to the Etsy or whatever wherever you would think it would be appropriate to put it. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Now you're really messing around, and so I just try to keep it out of sight, out of mind. Keep those hidden files hidden. As a matter of fact, I even have in Linux you can have a file called .hidden and hide directories.
Yeah.
Like if one of them happens to show up in there that's annoying you could hide it. And I have a few things hidden under .hidden. So, and a GUI, I don't see them. All right. Well, next, again, almost everything's working for me, and I'm slowly and steadily recreating my Linux Mint Cinnamon desktop experience on GhostBSD. But one of the things that the next challenge I conquered this week, and I was so happy when I figured it out, with Dropbox. I use Dropbox to share files for a group of guys that I play a strategy game with. And there is no desktop app for FreeBSD or GhostBSD. There is a command line app if you want to upload or download files to Dropbox, with your account. But without the desktop app, there is no automatic sync. Now, of course, there are other solutions like Nextcloud and other things. If you were setting this up on your own, for your own purpose, for business over personal, you could find other ways. You could use SyncThing and things like that. There's other solutions. But if you are stuck using Dropbox because the company you work for or the group you're sharing files with, that's what they've decided to use, I had to come up with another solution, knowing that I was not going to have automatic sync no matter what. So I found something that I could live with. And the way I did that is, of course, Dropbox has a web access. You open up Dropbox in a tab, you log in, and there's your files. Now, mind you, you still have to manually upload or download things. But one of the nice things about the desktop app on Linux Mint, for example, is not only does it do the automatic sync, but it notifies you. Somebody in your group uploads a file within a few minutes. It gives you a neat notification on Cinnamon in the lower right-hand corner of your panel. And I miss that because, hey, when you see that, hey, somebody uploaded something and, you want to act. So I was able to recreate that part of the functionality at least by going into Dropbox in the web interface, telling it to quote unquote follow those particular folders that we're sharing that have all our game files in it. And it would email me to my registered email address an email telling me, hey, there's a file there. Now you can get that email on your phone, on your email app. But what I figured out was if you go into Firefox, open up a browser tab, log into, in this case, I use Yahoo for this purpose, and the Yahoo will allow you assuming you have your browser open at all times, which I do, you could tell it to send you a notification. So Yahoo being open on a tab in your browser, it gets that email from Dropbox. It sends a notification to your desktop. It looks exactly like the notification does from the Dropbox app. So like from a visual standpoint, it functions almost exactly the same. And all you have to do is you click on that notification and it takes you right to that browser tab. And then you manually download your file. So I got the whole notification thing completely recreated using Yahoo and notifications. And then I even went one step further and says, hey, you know what? I'm a big fan of Firefox extensions. As I've mentioned before, I figured out there's an extension called Hide My Tabs. If I want to hide that Firefox, that Yahoo tab, so I don't even have to look at it, right? I don't even want to see it. You could hide the tab using Hide My Tabs Firefox extension. It still sends you the notification and pops up, and boom, there's that whole functionality recreated. So I was very happy with at least getting that part set up.
Wow. That sounds like a very convoluted.
Convoluted was the word that had
solution.
been floating around in my head right there.
Yes.
But what are you going to do?
This sounds like a horrible stack that I would create to do something super simple. Go ahead.
I mean, the solutions we have that are available to us for these, to use these cloud solutions, I mean, getting good support for Google Drive on Linux, that's always been a thing. And these cool projects come and go, like Grive and Overdrive and stuff like that, and nothing seems to stick. Then you got Dropbox. Oh great, I got Dropbox. And yeah, Linux has got a client, but then other open source OSs don't have a client for it. There doesn't seem to be anybody that's interested in giving you all the things everywhere. It is so frustrating. And then you find ones like Mega, or there used to be one out there. What was that one that was really great years and years ago? I think it was I don't remember, but they had you could get quite a bit of storage. And they didn't have limitations on the file size. That's the other thing, So solutions for this stuff, you almost have to get convoluted. I one time needed access to a Dropbox, and this was back before Linux had been widely adopted by Dropbox, so I used a sync thing. I had a Windows machine syncing to Dropbox, and then I used sync thing to sync to the Windows machine from my Linux machine. So I mean, when it comes to
I have done this.
Yep.
you know, the lengths at which we're forced to go to make all this work, you know, yeah. So it's kind of fun when you hear somebody tell a story like that, really. And then the notifications.
It was satisfying.
Yeah.
To beat the system, to beat the lack of the support for FreeBSD.
And
But
hide
it works
that.
great on Linux, and
Yeah. Hide that in Yahoo Mail, for God's sake, because you don't want any of your friends
Right.
seeing you use that. Awesome.
So, likewise, again, almost everything works. I mean, all the things I'm describing now are like getting pickier and pickier because, you know, when I first set up GhostBSD and then I put the Cinnamon desktop on, you know, all the common programs, you know, Firefox, Thunderbird, you know, all the extensions, Nemo, it's all the same. I mean, but I'm really trying to get down to the picky, you know, obscure things eventually that to recreate the Linux Mint experience and see if it could be a substitute, right? And one of the other sticking points for me was my VPN. Now, I use a commercial VPN called Surfshark. Maybe you guys use different ones. I'm pretty happy with it. And, you know, they do have a Linux client. They have a client for everything, you know, pretty much. They Linux, Android, iPhone, Windows, Mac, even one that runs on Android TVs. And I got it working on my Fire TV. It's awesome. I really like it. So obviously I wanted to get that working on GhostBSD, and there's no client. So I had to figure stuff out. So I did figure out that Surfshark wisely supports at least one and possibly two different standards. In this case, OpenVPN. They had some instructions on their website to how to set up access to Surfshark for their customers like me using OpenVPN. This might work, for example, if you're on an obscure Linux distro that does not have the, you know, where you can't download like the PPA like I did and install the client on Mint or Ubuntu or a compatible distro, or in this case on FreeBSD, because luckily OpenVPN is very popular and it's in the GhostBSD repository. So then I had to learn about OpenVPN. Well, it's a pretty simple program, but what the tricky thing is, Surfshark has files that you could download that have all their different, because there's 100 and something different cities, you know, Miami, New York, Tokyo, etc., all around the world that you want to get access to. And without the GUI, you have to have these little .ovpn files. So what you do is you download them using wget, you put it somewhere on your hard drive, and then OpenVPN is accessed through the terminal. And what you have to do is take a specific special authorization username and authorization password, not the same one that you would put in your GUI when you set up your GUI account, but they give you like a long, you know, alphanumeric password that's specific to you that you could use with OpenVPN. So they're supporting this open standard, which is great. I think they also support a different one called WireGuard, but I didn't mess with that because I got OpenVPN working. So what you would do in the terminal is, you know, type sudo OpenVPN, and then I would put a direct path to the OpenVPN file I wanted to use, you know, which would be some long thing, you know, with the name of the city in it, and ends in .ovpn. There's you know 100 and something of them, and that will get you directly to that particular city. If you want to go to London, New York, you know, make believe you're in that place, and it works great. You know, I tested it. I you know used there's a website that lets you test whatismyip.com.
So
it's a great website that
does the BSD, does it use network manager to handle the network stuff from a GUI desktop? The reason I ask is because I was using a VPN years ago called Trust.zone, and they did not have a Linux client, but they had these. You could grab all of these .ovpn, and then there was another file that had that username and password. It was the way you're describing it, the exact same thing. And you could import that stuff into the network manager, and then it would literally, you could open up a menu on your network manager, and you could just click on the VPN that you wanted, and it was the same thing. It was OpenVPN. Yeah, it actually integrates really, really well. I kind of liked it because of that, but as time went on, they became less and less. A lot of the servers weren't working anymore, and that's when I switched over to PIA, and they do have a Linux client. But I thought that was kind of cool because it might sound like you're doing it the hard way that way, but you're really staying close to native when you're using these tools. You're basically using the bare bones OpenVPN, and the WireGuard way of doing it's just as easy. But yeah.
But I want to point out a couple of things here. When it comes to OpenVPN, this is what you're doing here. The command line way is the way that I'm kind of used to. It's kind of what I always did, especially when doing things like setting it up for VM. I never really used any of the GUIs. I never liked any of the GUIs. But I will say that the WireGuard, very similar in the setup, but there's less overhead in regards to how it works. So it will be a little bit faster and a little bit cleaner.
Your microphone
Just
went out again, Joe.
Oh, did it
Yeah.
randomly switch to the other microphone again?
Yeah.
Okay, that explains why it unmuted itself at one point. I don't know what the heck's going on with this thing. I'm sorry, guys.
It's got to be a cable.
So it's got, yeah, I guess my mini USB cable went bad.
There.
Is that something you printed?
No, it's a USB cable. It is a USB cable. That's it. So
Okay.
I don't know, but yeah, I mean WireGuard. It just has less overhead, and I will use a GUI to set up that one on occasion. So
Yeah, apparently there is a GUI for WireGuard. I haven't played around with it because I started with OpenVPN. I got it working. Yeah, I'll tell you, on Linux and all my other devices, my phone, my Fire TV, the GUI for Surfshark is great. I mean, it just works. It works when
Yeah.
I'm watching TV. It works on my Android phone. Really, any operating. You can put it on your router, directly on your router. It's supported some routers. So they have a really good GUI app. However, yeah, not FreeBSD, but I did get OpenVPN working, and then it occurred to me, hey, wait a minute, since this isn't a terminal, there's 148 different, cities all around the world that it supports. I could use aliases. So instead of manually typing sudo OpenVPN and then this long, bunch of text that includes the path, user, local, etc, OpenVPN / then blankety blank blank blank, London.ovpn. I could just type London, save that as an alias, just type London, and have that be London. Of course, I just got to spend whatever 20, 30 minutes creating all the aliases up front. Well,
And then
once
make you a
they're in
little
there,
make you a
I
little
could just-
shortcut on your desktop to just double click
And
that.
I also want to mention that you can use a file with your username and
Yeah.
password, and you can pass that to OpenVPN instead of having it in your clipboard manager.
Yes. Yeah, you were just reading ahead. Exactly. You guys probably have that's probably not a bad idea. But yeah, what I did was I made it because I want to keep this efficient and also keyboard oriented as I usually do. So yeah, in my case, so far what I've got deduced is that create the alias and then it prompts you for the sudo, your password from sudo. So that would be a, bing, enter. Then it prompts you for your authorization username, which I have saved on copy Q my clipboard, which again, you could bring up with a keyboard shortcut, type a number, type enter, and then it'll paste right into that field, and then it'll prompt you for your authorization, username first, then the password. So it's a few steps, but it's all keyboard driven.
No.
You're probably right. There probably is a way to automate it further than that,
No.
but
Let
that's
me ask
where I
you
got
another
up
question.
to so far.
Do you always have the VPN turned on? Like always?
No, I don't run a VPN all day, every day on all my devices. I use it primarily for getting around geo-blocking
Okay.
for various types of content on my TV, for downloading stuff from various places. With the way the world's going, I may start using it more going forward.
Right. Well, just a couple. Well, I was going to say if you were using it all the time, then you could set it up as a root cron job. But since you're not using it all the time, you can exclude it from the sudo. So you don't need to enter the password for sudo for this one command.
Mhm.
And then that just saves you a little bit of, hassle.
Okay. All right. Well, good. Those are good things. I'm sure I'll look into it a bit more. But yeah, after playing around with it, I was thrilled that I was able to figure it out and get it working, and it was reliable because I kept connecting and disconnecting the different exit nodes and using what is my IP, and it accurately thought I was in those places. So yeah, that was one of the very last things that I couldn't instantly get working on GhostBSD. Now I've got it working, so I'm very close to completely recreating the Linux Mint experience over there. All right, now speaking of Surfshark, this is not an ad, but I'm just going to say I was very, very happy that, again, I was able to beat the system. I first subscribed in 2020. I got a great introductory deal. It was $59 for 27 months, and that took me to early 2023. And then my subscription, now suddenly it's $59 for a year, right? So then it renewed in 2024. It renewed in 2023, 24, and 2025. And then I said to myself, wait a minute. How come I can't get that introductory deal again? So I just waited till my account expired last week, and I just let it expire. So I was without a VPN for like 2 days. Within 48 hours, they emailed me a comeback deal, and I got 28 months for $50 and change. So I was like, yes, again, I beat the system.
That's funny how that works. Our cable companies around here are like that too. If you call them up and threaten to shut it off, then they pull these things out of their hind end. It's crazy. There's no such thing as set prices with any of this stuff.
Yep. Yeah, you got to play the game.
Yep,
So
you do.
I'm good for the next 28 months. And I'll do the same thing in whatever year, whatever 2027 or 2028 when that time comes. All right. Well, then back to Linux. Software related, I did get a couple of my longtime favorite programs working here. There's a Windows program that I like to use. I think is the best at its job. If you guys or anybody collects photos and you may have duplicates, and that takes up hard drive space when you download and re-download collections of images. There's a program called Awesome Duplicate Photo Finder. They have a website up. It's an old Windows program. You want to download the quote unquote portable version, which is just naked exe, which does not require an install, because those work the best with Wine, and this program works with Wine, and it does the job. There are other applications for Linux that you can use to try to deduplicate your collections of images, but I like the interface and the way this one works best, so it works great with Wine. So I got that working on Linux Mint, and I was happy about that. And then there is another application called Video Duplicate Finder. No relation to the other app. This is a cross-platform application to find and eliminate duplicate videos and photos. I put the link to the GitHub for this application, and this works with pretty much every operating system. FFmpeg is the back end, as is usual with these type of programs, and it's excellent. I have large collections of videos, and I've, definitely, as a data hoarder for certain types of content, I have definitely re-downloaded different versions of the same videos, of slightly different, bit rates and, frame size and quality. And if you do have want to accomplish the same thing, I would highly recommend Video Duplicate Finder. It gives you a lot of information to make those decisions, so you could see. It'll show you the different. It finds searches the directory you tell it to. It finds the videos or the images that look alike, and it will have the little bits of information that you need to decide. Bit rate, frame size. And you could visually see one in case it's got like an ugly watermark stuck on it or something like that. So, yeah, I find it very, very handy. Those, in my opinion, are the two best programs for deduplicating your media. I will follow up on something I talked about a while back, Librera FD. It is a free ebook reader for Android or Fire HD tablets, which are based on Android. I've taken the habit of downloading a lot of PDFs from the Internet Archive, even though a lot of their books have been removed due to the big lawsuit they suffered. There's still a lot of reading material there. We're not talking new bestsellers, but a lot of, in my case, nonfiction books of all different kinds. I use a Firefox extension to download from the Internet Archive. I've talked about that before. But on my Fire HD8 tablet, I have this program called Librera FD, and I think it's great. And to me, it makes Calibre seem really over-engineered and clunky and unnecessary, unless you've got a massive collection. Maybe Joe does have a massive collection, or you're doing format conversions. In my case, I've got a more modest size collection, and I didn't like Calibre. I just thought it was. Yeah, yes to both. Okay. Yeah, and now that I've got a collection, I'll show you this. I just like the way it looks when you're here. It just does a very nice job of showing you, all your book covers. So if you want a real simple system, I download these PDFs. I just drag them over to this device via FTP, and I've got all my book covers right here. I don't really, in my case at least, I don't feel the need to have a desktop version of that program. I'm not converting anything between one format or another. So I think it's a cool device. And then lastly, media I enjoyed in the last month. I read a book, another nonfiction book, Columbus, The Four Voyages, 1492 to 1504 by Lawrence Bergreen. It's the same author as the Magellan book that I talked about on a recent episode. If you like history, it is very, very well written. And I learned a lot that I did not know. Like Columbus was stranded on Puerto Rico for a year on his fourth voyage and miraculously got rescued. So we very nearly lost him to history. For movies, I watched a supernatural body horror film starring real-life couple Dave Franco and Alison Brie. It's vaguely akin to The Substance. I don't know if you guys saw that movie either, but that's one to watch if you haven't. But yes, it's about instead of changing into a younger body and living your best life, this one is about two human beings being forcibly merged into one body. So if you like that type of thing, this was an interesting watch. It's on Hulu if you care. I also enjoyed The Long Walk. It's an R-rated adaptation of a Stephen King work. It's actually the very first story that he wrote as a young man, not the first one that was published. It did come out years after his first novel under the pseudonym Richard Bachman. It was an R-rated movie, so yeah, it was violent. It wasn't, for kids. It was pretty well acted by a great cast of young actors, and it also starred the great Mark Hamill as the Heavy. Very violent. It did have sort of a weird and slightly disappointing ending. Just the last few seconds were a little disappointing, but yeah, if you like a horror, a very violent dystopian movie, check it out. And that's it for my wanderings.
What happened to the TV show stuff?
Oh, you're right. I skipped that. Well, in short, Family Guy is back after a long break. They're doing 2 episodes at a time. The first episode was a rare one with no silly cutaways, which is sort of a stock and trade for Family Guy. And we're looking at having 2 episodes. I guess I don't want to say burning them off, but I think they're working them around holidays and sports and other things. So DVR, catch up whenever you feel like. The Simpsons is doing the same thing also on Friday evening. The show will probably outlive me, but yes, I have seen every single episode from 1989 going forward, so I don't think I could stop now in good conscience. And then lastly, after years of being on a streaming service of some kind, the same Sunday evening block is American Dad, the other animated show, is coming back. So, a big Sunday animation fest.
Yeah, it's funny. Even those the shows that that they end up canceling, freaking come back. I mean, I know Family Guy got canceled at least once and then came back, and then Futurama has been canceled 2-3 times and keeps coming back. Mm-hmm. So I don't know about American Dad, but I know, like you said, it switched over to streaming, and I guess now it's back on Fox. But anyways, on to housekeeping and announcements. Thank you for listening to this episode of mintCast. If you see something that you think we should be talking about, tell us. Send us an email, mintcast@mintcast.org. Join us live on YouTube. Post at the mintCast subreddit. Chat with us on Discord and Telegram. Our next episode is 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Sunday, March 15th, 2026. Note for viewers and listeners outside the USA, clocks in the USA move forward 1 hour on March 8th. This means the local time for the show in other time zones may change. You can get mintCast converted to your time zone, link in the show notes. Don't know how well that works with the time changes. Next Saturday, we will host a roundtable live stream. Please come and join us using the Discord channel at 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Saturday, March 7th, 2026. Link in the show notes to get that converted to your time zone. Live stream information is at mintcast.org/livestream. Wrapping up, I've been Joe. If you like the sound of my voice, I'm on a couple of the podcasts. I'm on the Linux Link Tech Show, which is at tlts.org. I'm on the Linux Lugcast, linuxlugcast.com. You can send me an email directly, jb@mintcast.org. And there's also a link to buy me a coffee on Ko-fi. Moss couldn't be here with us today. You can pick him up at Full Circle Weekly News, moss@bodhilinux.com. On Mastodon, he's at Zyvola at hosttux.social, and occasionally he puts a show on HPR, and he will eventually one day be joining us back on this show. Bill?
You can email me. I'm bill@mintcast.org. At WCHauser3 at Fossidon.org on that there Mastodon. Also, check out my other show, Linux OTC, where I talk Linux with Eric and Majid. There's a link to that in the show notes. Eric could not be with us today, but he can be reached at eric@mintcast.org. Charles could not be with us either, and he can be reached via email at charles@mintcast.org. I think he can anyway. I don't remember setting it up. Mr.
Now, you missed Majid.
Yeah.
Majid can be reached at drmajid@mintcast.org, at atypicaldoctor@mastodon.social, Atypical Doctor on Instagram and Threads, and the Atypical Doctor podcast. And also, he's on Linux OTC and Distro Hoppers Digest. Jim?
You can reach me at jim@mintcast.org. I go by GNU2Linux on Discord, and I have a few episodes of my own podcast solo as the Linux Shortcut on YouTube.
Now, before we leave, we want to make sure to acknowledge some of the people who make mintCast possible. Bill for our audio editing and for hosting the server, which runs our website maintenance, and the Nextcloud server on which we host our show notes and raw audio. Thanks, Bill. Archive.org for hosting our audio files. Topstar for our logo. InitRD for the animated Discord logo. Londoner for our time sinks and various other contributions. And the Linux Mint development team for the fine distro we love to talk about. Thanks, Clam.
Thanks, Clem.
And Co.
And out. Thanks, everybody in the live stream.